Good morning. My name is Kori DeLeon. I'm the very proud president of the Chamber of Commerce for Seal Beach. And I am also a local business owner here on Main Street in Seal Beach. So I, like everybody else on the call, has been directly affected by everything that's going on. But I'm also very excited in a time when everything seems so uncertain. I couldn't be more proud of the way our community is binding together to support each other. Just last night, I got a text from my neighbor down the street. He is an ER doctor at Hogue, and he was approached by a group of local RV owners, and they are reaching out to our ER doctors and our first responders to offer up their RVs in a time when they may need to self-isolate but still want to be closer to their family. We're finding unique ways to bind together, and as a Chamber of Commerce, we always look for new ways to support our community, and we could not have found a more amazing champion than Congressman Harley Rouda. I'll be introducing him in a moment, but I'm really pleased that so many of his staff will also be on the call. We have Zach Commons, Congressman Rouda's legislative director, Andrew Nell, Congressman Rouda's chief of staff. We have Annie Ye, as well as our own Lauren Barrett, our field representative and Congressman Rouda's special projects director. I'd like to personally thank all the hardworking directors, board of directors for the Seal Beach Chamber of Commerce, as well as our missing director, Seal Beach Naval Weapons Center Public Affairs Officer Greg Smith, who is busy overseeing the important work on the Naval Hospital ship, the Mercy. I would be super remiss if I didn't acknowledge a couple special people that took the time to participate in the call today. We have the Mayor of Seal Beach, Shelley Sostarczyk, on the call. We have City Council Member and Mayor Pro Tem, Joe Kalmick, Seal Beach City Assistant City Manager, we'll see if I can get that out, Patrick Gallegos. You will see on your screen Seal Beach Chief of Police, Bill Gonchak, and Scott Newton of the LA Fin Bank. If you bear with me, I'm going to go a little farther into a bio on Congressman Rouda. This is his freshman year in Congress, so you may not know all the details about this amazing man that's been fighting so hard and tireless for us during this crisis. Harley Rouda was elected into Congress in 2018. As a successful businessman, husband, and patriot, Harley ran for office to make politics and policy making work again for Orange County families and across the nation. Harley is dedicated to working with Democrats and Republicans on bipartisan legislation that makes a difference in people's lives. He believes that working together, our nation can tackle critical challenges of addressing climate change, rebuilding a crumbling infrastructure, confronting homelessness, and protecting Social Security and Medicare. Harley believes we can make healthcare and prescription drugs available and affordable for all. We can make a world-class education attainable for every young person, and we can forge an economy that gives everyone a chance for the American dream. The values of hard work and honesty drive Harley as he pursues crucial and principled work in Congress. He has spent decades fighting homelessness and domestic violence, working with Human Rights Watch, supporting education for the underserved and underrepresented, as well as supporting access to higher education, saving military jobs, and working with civic organizations to drive economic development. Harley holds an MBA from Ohio State University and a law degree from Capital University Law School. He lives in Laguna Beach and is married to award-winning author Kori DeLeon, hopefully I said that right, and they have 4 children that constantly inspire them. Harley is a frequent guest on Fox, CNN, MSNBC, and other news outlets that welcome his common sense approach to problem solving. Ladies and gentlemen, Congressman Harley Rouda.
Thanks, Kori. Appreciate that introduction. And a big shout out to you and your team for everything you are doing for the small businesses and business community in Seal Beach. I'm actually originally from Columbus, Ohio, and served on the executive committee for the Columbus Chamber of Commerce. I know how important chambers are to the vitality of the business community, and for all of your efforts in helping weather us through this unprecedented storm. Thank you so much. Let me give you a quick update on what we have done and what we're working on, and then I'll turn it over for questions. Obviously, we all know this is unprecedented, uncharted waters for us to ever see anything along these lines. And Congress has passed 3 major bills so far to address the coronavirus. We call them C1, C2, and C3. C3 is the most recent one. That is the $2.2 trillion relief package that is broken into multiple areas, but I think the most notable areas, especially for those that are in your membership, really fall into 2 different areas. One area would be the roughly $375 billion available for small businesses. In addition, the second part is the unemployment insurance that is available to employees who are laid off during this time frame. Both of those have different nuances to it, and they tend to be mutually exclusive. So if somebody's trying to take advantage of one of the forgivable loans through the Small Business Administration, the goal there is that they maintain their employment. On the other hand, for those situations where the businesses have to look at laying people off, the unemployment insurance that will be available to those employees has been significantly increased by the federal government's commitment to $600 a week while they are out of work for the 4 months, I believe it is. So with that, Kori, I'll pause right there because I know people would prefer to ask questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. As you pointed out, I have some of my team members with me as well, Lauren and Annie, and I think Zach and Andrew. So if I have to send a lifeline out to one of them to help me answer one of these questions, please allow me to do so.
Okay.
Kori, you might be on.
Yeah, I had to unmute myself. I apologize. I just heard that I was a little robotic sounding, so we changed the input a little bit. Hopefully that's better.
It is. Kori, I think you're back on mute.
Yeah, I think for some reason I got muted. Okay, let's try this again. So we had reached out to several people, and when we decided, and there were several people. This one comes from a massage therapist. I'm a massage therapist, which is a non-essential business, and I am no longer allowed to operate. Since June, I've been a sole proprietor. I have a business license, and I'm paid directly by my clients. But in the months prior, I was an independent contractor paid by the spa that I worked at. On unemployment paperwork, there's no option to include both of these situations that make up my past 12 months of employment. How should I designate myself on the forms in order to claim unemployment?
Yeah, unfortunately, this is one of the areas that needs to be addressed. I've got to emphasize the fact that we drove a $2.2 trillion relief package through in record time. And while it was extended to a much larger group of employees than we've ever seen before, specifically it used to be unemployment insurance was primarily for salaried individuals and hourly workers. This was extended to gig workers, commission compensated individuals, and others. But when you have a situation where somebody's receiving income from multiple areas, it makes it more difficult. We need to get the technical cleanup here and work with the state to allow individuals like you to be able to apply for the lost income from all sources. And we are working on legislation that's CARES Act 2 or C4 that hopefully will provide greater direction in these areas. But I'm sorry that you're going through what you're going through, because there are certain groups and people who have kind of slipped through the cracks, and we've got to fix that. We really do.
Okay, this next question, Congressman Rouda's office, what is Congressman Rouda's office, along with the federal government, doing right now in terms of actionable items directly to support the municipalities, local infrastructure, and maintenance during this time? And then the second question, the follow-up question to that is, How long will it take to implement?
Yeah, it's a great question. In the recent legislation, the $2.2 trillion CARES Act relief, we fought for extending the relief to all cities and municipalities. Unfortunately, the way the legislation was written, that there's not a single city in my district that qualifies for direct funding out of that package. It has to go through the county. In the C4 legislation, we are fighting hard to make sure that all municipalities have the ability to receive support. And actually, that's one of the contention points right now between the Senate-led GOP and the House-led Democratic caucus as to that add-on $250 billion package. We want to see in the House that there is protections for municipal governments below the current threshold. And here's the reason why that's so important. Cities are getting hit on both sides right now. They are seeing a greater demand on their services, the services they need to provide for their constituents, at the same time while seeing their tax revenues go down. So we've got to provide support and a backstop from the federal government to help them through these times. In addition, the legislation in the CARES Act that was passed provided small lending through the Small Business Administration to a variety of institutions, including nonprofits. But one area that dropped through the cracks there that we need to add back are chambers of commerce, who play an important role, and other associations and trade associations who have an important role in helping people get through this time frame. So this additional legislation hopefully will fill some of these gaps that are readily becoming apparent from what we've seen.
And Congressman, when do we think we might see? I know that you've been working tirelessly on this. When do we might see this next update on all of this legislation that you guys have been so hard on?
Yeah, timing's important, and I wish I could give you a solid answer. I think we've all seen with what's going on with the Small Business Administration's ability to manage the number of small business applications taking place through their participating banks is showing real concerns about it being processed in a quick manner for these companies. And adding another $250 billion, which is what the Senate wants to do, on one hand, sure, it makes sense, but it doesn't matter if people are applying and can't get the money, that we have more money. We have to make sure that the application process is processed quickly and effectively and made available to all small businesses that qualify. And many of these small businesses have no lending relationship with any lender out there. And they're being turned away from big banks that are saying, hey, we don't have a business relationship with you. We've never loaned to you. So sorry, we're not going to help you. So what the House is trying to do is make sure that in this $250 billion, that a significant portion of it gets down to community and local banks who know these companies, who know these small businesses, and are able and capable and ready to make the loans. And I think this is a reasonable request by the House to suggest to the GOP, and hopefully they will come around and agree that we need to have that kind of additional support for local banks. So to answer your question in a short term, I would hope we get this done in the next 30 days.
Awesome. Okay, so just kind of following up on that, we actually came out, there was actually quite a few questions regarding the whole SBA loan application process. Where can somebody get more information on that?
They can come to our website, as well as the SBA's website has very detailed information on how you qualify, what are the parameters. Annie or Lauren, where can they find it on our website? Unmute.
I believe is it located right here? I'm sharing a screen with everybody. This is actually a live screen of your website. Is it in the COVID-19 information and resources guide on your first page?
Kori,
Yes.
just click that, and then there will be a table of contents there where you'll see the small business resources.
Oh, look at you guys. That's amazing. Okay, so and this is all located. And Lauren, again, what is your website?
It's Rouda, ROUDA.house.gov.
Perfect.
Kori, this is updated daily, sometimes multiple times daily. So it's a real shout out to my team who's done a fabulous job of pulling this resource guide together, and hopefully it will be of benefit to your members.
Thank you guys so much for putting something together. I know personally, as we've looked for sources to provide to our members and our community stakeholders, we've often referred to your website, so thank you very much. Okay, let's get back to some of the questions because I know that's very important to those that are on the call. We have realized that many Seal Beach business owners' sales cycles and business normality is correlated to the success and functioning of local public school systems and flow of visitors. Consumer optimism is crucial to our local business success. With the crisis the way it is, what is your outlook for the September 2020 school year?
I wish I had that crystal ball. Here's the reality. Right now, we are trying to flatten the curve because if we do not flatten the curve, the impending surge of individuals infected by COVID-19 will overwhelm our healthcare system. That is the bottom line. And we are seeing that happen to some degree in New York and New York City specifically right now. So we have to flatten the curve. In addition to flattening the curve, we also have to allow the supply chain to catch up. The supply chain to catch up to be able to do massive testing across the country to find out who is actually infected and who is not, so that you can get the proper resources into those hot spots. You also have to have testing as to who has recovered from the virus, who has the antibodies to basically begin a process of reducing social isolation and social distancing and getting back into the workforce. So by what we're doing right now, by flattening the curve through social isolation, we are providing the opportunity for the healthcare system to catch up and the supply chain to catch up. The question will really become an understanding of how successful are we there in doing that, as well as creating therapies, better therapies for those who are infected, and ultimately a vaccine. All of these are major variables that will go into helping us understand when we can get back to a more normalized way of life. I also think all of you recognize that this is a bit of a paradigm shift. And the reality is, I don't think we're going to get back to normal. I think there's going to be a new normal, and exactly what that looks like and the long-term implications of dealing with this pandemic is for another time. Right now, we just need to get through the current situation.
And I think you really kind of touched upon her follow-up question, which was how has COVID-19 kind of impacted the federal government, and what is, again, heading into third quarter on financial, transportation, and healthcare sectors?
Well, I think we're going to have to do a lot more at the federal level. Certainly, we're not well prepared for this pandemic. That's probably the understatement of the morning. And we are playing catch up. When you look at the number of cases and the mortality rate as a percentage of those cases, it's alarming. And we are playing catch up in a multitude of different areas. We have to be better prepared next time around, because this is not a question of if it's going to happen again. It's a question of when it's going to happen again. And I think once, again, we get through this process, it's going to be the federal government's job, while working in conjunction with states and local municipalities, to make sure that we have a much better plan to execute going forward.
So this question, thank you, Rick. Thank you so much. This question is really on a personal level. I'd like to know if there's assistance for my situation as an individual. I continue to pay rent at the studio location while I am training at home, home training at home. Is there assistance available for me? So there is a trainer or something like that. I didn't seem to indicate the type of work, but we have a lot of those types of people that may be renting studio space and then are doing online training. but then also have to pay the rent for their studio space while they're training from home?
Kori, I would recommend that the person do a couple things. First, reach out to your landlord and see if you might be able to work with them regarding rent abatement for a period of time. I would hope, to the degree landlords can do this, allow a multi-month abatement that then can be added on at the tail end of the lease, something along those lines. But a lot of landlords can't do that. So the other option that might be available to this small business owner is to take advantage of the SBA forgivable loan program and see how that might impact them, help them. In addition, there's also emergency grants available through the SBA. And then there's also what we talked about earlier, the unemployment insurance that might be available to her as well, but it's hard to answer that question without knowing if she's a W-2 employee or not, or 1099 for that matter as well. But many small businesses take their income through subchapter S distributions, and that makes it a little more tricky. And I will say for all of your members, please reach out to your accountant and tax counsel to find out what is best for you. They are all drinking from a fire hose right now, trying to understand the terms and conditions around these different programs. We're getting additional guidance from the federal agencies. Literally every day it can change. So it's really important to make sure that you work with your tax advisor to get the right current advice.
And so I'm going to jump into some of the questions again that are live that we have on the question and answer. This one comes from Thomas, who says, thank you for your time. The next challenge will be phase 2, the reopening process, cost to reopen, inventory, staff, etc. If we are able to reopen, our funds will be depleted and new debt on the books. The first 90 days of reopening, 100% of cost utilities. This may be within maybe 50%, and they're expecting possibly maybe 50% of income where they were seeing that before. Are there financial plans in the works to address the reopening costs?
So from the federal government's perspective, what we're trying to do is recognize that right now, this is the relief phase of dealing with the pandemic and helping small businesses such as this member. And that is, how do we just get through best we can to make sure these businesses can survive during this shutdown period. After the shutdown period, we have to be prepared to provide a stimulus, a recovery package that allows a multitude and range of businesses to be able to get back on their feet. So the quick answer is yes, we are planning on working on that. And again, while we're working on C4 right now, I think C5 and potentially C6 will look at how we provide the fiscal stimulus to help businesses not just survive, but begin to thrive and get back on their feet.
Okay, this question comes from Deb Matchin, prior president of the chamber. If someone drew unemployment late last year and exhausted the amount due, does the new legislation allow for extension of benefits if the person is still not working?
I am not aware that that is the case. I might let Annie or Lauren or anybody else, Zach, Andrew, weigh in on that. The federal funds of $600 is specifically tied to loss of employment or loss of compensation because of COVID-19. Anybody on my team want to add to that?
This is Zach. The CARES Act provides for an additional 13 weeks of unemployment for folks who've already exhausted all of their other unemployment benefits.
Thank you. Okay, this is looks like another unemployment question. This coming from William Simpson. For those of us that have applied for unemployment and are LLC/sole proprietors and don't pay into the unemployment system, will we be required to pay that back to the state?
So the way to look at this is it's supposed to be more or less an either-or proposition. The whole goal is to keep the workforce whole. And if you take a small business loan through the CARES Act, the primary purpose of it is to maintain your employee base. And if you maintain that employee base, then that loan has the ability to be forgivable. So there's no personal recourse, there's no personal guarantee. In fact, it's not even a loan, it's a grant if you meet certain criteria. And but on the other hand, the major piece of that criteria is maintaining your employees, including yourself. So if you decide to go on unemployment insurance, that would make that loan not be a grant or forgivable. It would have to be paid back. So again, this is why it's really, really important for each of the businesses to talk to their tax counsel so that they can understand how these various programs interplay with each other.
And this question, this is from Marissa Hayes, and she had both written to us prior, and she's in the chat now, so I'm going to read her question directly. I have two small businesses in Seal Beach. One with 1099 miscellaneous workers that I pay monthly. I have questions on how that would work with the Paycheck Protection Program. Every time I call the SBA, I get different answers, and every time, as if to the 1099, does that apply to 1099 workers themselves, or do I have to apply for them? She's called about she said she's called about 25 different times, and the answers are conflicting. She's also tried to contact Wells Fargo and Chase regarding the PPP program. And you had touched upon that a little bit earlier, that it was difficult to get back. And that's something that we've actually heard quite a bit from our members, a little bit of the frustration with those larger banks. And I'll let you hit those, and then she's got two more, and then we've got one more question before I know you have to go.
Yeah, the hard part there is that traditionally speaking, the unemployment insurance, as I mentioned earlier, was for those who are hourly workers or salaried workers. And with the CARES Act extending the $600 federal support, weekly support, is supposed to be extended to the more non-traditional worker, the gig worker, the commission compensated worker, the independent contractor. And having that intent actually be fulfilled is where we tend to see breakdowns in the system, because the systems have not been set up for that type of worker historically. So it may take the state a little bit of time to catch up. The one thing I do know from the state of California strongly encourages anyone who is filing for unemployment insurance to do it online. That is your fastest, best way to achieve success. The second part of the question on the SBA lending, the challenge with the big banks is they just got overwhelmed. My understanding, as an example, with Wells Fargo is the largest provider of small business loans in the United States. And they were allocated $10 billion under the CARES Act, under that $375 billion total, to do lending. Within a matter of days, they had $30 billion of applications in the pipeline and shut it off. So while we're seeing real challenges with the big banks, I'm also hearing stories of small businesses who reached out to their local banks where they had a relationship. In some cases, those that they don't, but local area banks, community banks, where they're having a much higher degree of success in getting their application process started. What we need to do in the next round of legislation is do everything we can to help the administration clear up these bottlenecks, because as I stated earlier, whether it's the $375 billion we have now or the $250 billion we want to add, it doesn't matter what the number is if you don't get it out to the businesses. So we've got to make it easy to get out to the businesses. And that's why, for me, we have to have more of a focus on eliminating the bottlenecks so that these businesses can survive and then begin to thrive.
And I'm so sorry, but I have to jump in and say that we've got our next call actually starting right now. So we've got to. Well,
let me leave you with this. Again, I thank you so much for your leadership in addressing these issues with your members. I have started many small businesses and managed small, mid-sized, and large businesses. My background is the real estate profession, and we weathered the 2008 financial crisis, which dramatically hit the real estate-related industries extremely hard. And I do know we can get through this, and there will be a lot of pain and suffering, but let's keep supporting each other. Let's buy local. Let's do what we can to help each other navigate these troubling waters, and hopefully we'll all get on the other side in a stronger place. Thanks for everything.
Thank you, Congressman. I believe there's going to be a couple people, Lauren, or is there somebody staying on to address a couple more questions?
We're actually hopping on to the next
We're
call.
jumping on to the next call. Okay.
Yeah, I'm happy to give answers to everyone. If you want to send them my way or whatever is easiest, we'll make sure.
We have several questions on 1099, and I do want to, so we'll for those of you that are on the call, first of all, thank you very much for joining us. Please accept our wholehearted thank you for joining us on this very busy time. We are going to get back to several questions regarding defining payroll and 1099, and we wish everybody on the call a very happy holiday season, Easter and Passover. So for those of you, for any questions that did not get answered, the Congressman's office has agreed to address these, and we will go over these again. Sorry, there was just too many questions with not enough time. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you so much. And yeah, our website again is rouda.house.gov for that resources guide. And Kori, please just let us know how we can be of assistance and get those answers to you.
Thanks so much for everything.
Thanks.
I have the COVID-19 guide up on the screen, and again, everybody can go to your website to go ahead and get that.
Okay, thank you so much.
All right, that's it. Thank you so much for